Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and today we're out here taking a look at the car that I have been most interested in test driving this calendar year so far, and that is the 2014 and 2015 Lincoln MKZ. Now this model was completely redesigned for the 2014 model year, and there haven't really been any substantive changes for the 2015 model year, so this review will apply to both of those. Now Lincoln has been given a very hard time lately about their lineup. It is full of front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicles rather than rear-wheel drive vehicles like you'd find from BMW or Mercedes. But I don't necessarily think that that's a problem for the Lincoln MKZ. Well, it's true that that may have once been a problem. If we take a look at the comparative landscape for this vehicle, it's now full of front-wheel drive German competitors, from the Mercedes-Benz CLA to the brand new Audi A3. We also have, of course, the Volvo S60, the BMW 3 Series, but then of course BMW does have that brand new i3, and rumors are that the BMW 2 Series, which is front-wheel drive, will be coming to the US at some point soon. This of course still competes with something along the lines of a Mercedes-Benz C-Class, an Audi A4, the Cadillac ATS, CTS, possibly some Buick models, most definitely the Lexus CT200H, the ES350 and ES300H, and of course the brand new Acura TLX, which I haven't had a chance to drive, but hopefully I will in a few months. Up front, the MKZ wears Lincoln's new design language, and that's this flowing grille right here. It sort of looks like a winged arrangement, for lack of a better descriptor. Overall, I'm not sure if I find this the most attractive in this segment, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as some people have suggested. Go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments section down below. I have to admit that the design is actually growing on me, and I think it looks better in person than it did when I first saw it. I definitely think it's more attractive on the MKZ than it is on the MKX or the MKT, which are Lincoln's crossover vehicles. Now, interestingly enough, the most feedback I had this week from people that saw this out on the road was that they didn't find the grille too exciting. It's that they found the grille a little bit too demure, a little bit too restrained. And to that, I say that the BMW 3 Series is very restrained as well. It's definitely not as exciting as many of the entries up front. I wouldn't call it any more or any less exciting than the front end on this particular vehicle. I think that overall the most attractive entry in this segment for me is the Cadillac ATS. I really like the angular theme that's going on up front. But again, please let me know what you think down there in the comment section down below. Now in our particular model, we have parking sensors on the front. There's these little dots right here, and we have the radar cruise control and pre-collision warning sensor right over there. That's that blacked out portion in this lower grille. Now all MKZ models in the US have standard LED low beams, LED high beams, as well as LED daytime running lamps. Now, an interesting feature with these LED headlamps, and one of the reasons that they're my favorite out on the market right now, is that in addition to their very crisp lighting pattern, these also steer into the corners. And for some reason, a lot of luxury car manufacturers, when they upgrade you from standard HID headlamps to LED headlamps, you lose the steering functionality. And that steering functionality is excellent if you live out on winding country roads, especially because they do steer into corners and they really improve your field of view. While some may question Lincoln's new styling direction on the front end, I think the side profile of the MKZ is incredibly attractive, and we also have a great deal of attention to detail going on the side. We have these turn signals that are very neatly integrated into the side view mirrors, and there's also a chrome strip on the bottom, body-colored section on the top. We have this character strip that runs right along the side, and we have a definite hip going on in the vehicle. And some people have questioned this relatively abrupt trunk design, but I actually find it quite attractive as well. Right back here, the trunk design incorporates sort of a spoiler lip right here onto the trunk lid, which I find very attractive. Now, the only downside to this very vertical rear design right back here is that Lincoln had to put the trunk release right down here by the license plate, and that is a little bit lower than I would like in the vehicle, although you can open and close it with the remote control. At 194 inches long, the MKZ is longer than you might think. It is 10 inches longer than a Volvo S60, 10 inches longer than a Mercedes-Benz CLA, which is priced very similarly. It's actually even 2 inches longer than a Lexus ES, which is now based on the Toyota Avalon, and it's also 2 inches longer than the all-new and all-long BMW 3 Series. This is even slightly longer than the forthcoming Acura TLX or the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. It's just about the same size overall as the Cadillac CTS, which is a BMW 5 Series competitor. If this isn't long enough for you, of course, Lincoln still has that Lincoln MKZ, and that is an extra 10 inches longer than this vehicle and wider overall. From this angle, you can really see what I mean about the design of this rear end. We have this sort of spoiler-esque trunk lid right here, which is kind of attractive. Lincoln spelled out broadly right there, an LED strip going from tail lamp to tail lamp across the back, high-mounted stoplight right up here, backup camera located right there, again the trunk release button right down here, and all models have hidden exhaust tips, including the hybrid model. Under the hood, we have 3 different engine options. Things start out with a 2-liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder engine. It produces 240 horsepower if you run it on premium, 231 horsepower if you run it on regular unleaded. And Lincoln does tell us that it is rated to run safely on regular unleaded, unlike some of the other luxury entries out there. It produces 270 pound-feet of torque regardless of what kind of fuel you feed it. We also have a 3.6-liter V6 engine, good for 300 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque. Now, both of those engines are mated by default to a 6-speed automatic transmission, sending power right here to the front wheels. Or if you so choose, you can also get an all-wheel drive option, which will send up to 50% of the power without slip to the rear wheels. If the front axle does slip, then you can send a little bit more power to the rear, but it really depends on exactly what kind of slippage is going on. Also available is the hybrid system that we're taking a look at right here. On that side of the engine bay, we have a 2-liter 4-cylinder Atkinson cycle engine. It produces 141 horsepower and 129 pound-feet of torque. On this side of the engine bay is where you'll find the electric motors and the planetary gear set that make up the sort of transmission that we have under the hood. That will give you a system total of 188 total horsepower. Now, I say sort of transmission because this vehicle, very much like Toyota and Lexus's hybrids, does not have a transmission in the traditional sense. There are 2 electric motors, 1 planetary gear set, and those devices together, combined with the battery pack in the back and the engine, propel the vehicle forward. It is not possible for this engine to drive the car all by itself without the electric motors, and in many ways it's not really possible for this vehicle to drive itself just by the electric motors outside of a very limited range. So we do have an EV mode capacity in this vehicle. It's much higher than you'll find in the Toyota and Lexus hybrids. It's just about 70 miles an hour or so under limited circumstances for a limited range, possibly about a mile or 2. And that's all dictated by the size of the battery pack in the back. This vehicle does use a lithium-ion battery in the trunk rather than a nickel metal hydride battery like you'll find in the Lexus and Toyota hybrids. That gives you a little bit more space in the trunk that we'll take a look at in a bit. Fuel economy in this hybrid is very high for this segment at 38 miles per gallon city, 37 highway, and 38 combined. If you get the 2-liter turbo model, that drops you down to 22 miles per gallon city, 33 highway, 26 combined in front-wheel drive trim. If you had all-wheel drive, things drop down to 22, 31, 25. If you get the V6 model, that's going to give you the lowest fuel economy. That comes in at 19 miles per gallon city, 28 highway, 22 combined in front-wheel drive mode, and 18, 26, 21 if you do opt for the optional all-wheel drive system. Front seat comfort starts out at 8 out of 10 points, and that's the version that we're taking a look at right here. We have a 10-way power adjustable driver's seat. We also have a 4-way power adjustable tilt telescopic steering column. This is memory linked with a 3-position seat memory right over there on the door. One nice touch is that the passenger seat in the MKZ has the same range of motion as the driver's seat. I do find the seat bottom cushion to be just a little bit short for my legs, but overall it is a very comfortable seat. However, if you do choose an option box that is just under $600 for Ford's multi-contour seat, then this goes up to 10 out of 10 points, easily the most comfortable in this category, and that is including things like the Mercedes-Benz C-Class and the BMW 3 Series. That's because that extra seat gives you massaging functions and anti-fatigue function, which inflates air bladders in the bottom of the seat cushion as well as the seat back cushion to help improve blood circulation. We also get some additional ways of motion on the seat with a 4-way power adjustable lumbar support and power inflatable side bolsters as well. Now, in the luxury category, you don't find seats that are that adjustable or that comfortable until you step up to something like a BMW 5 Series with a $2,400 option package, which is their optional sport seats, which gives you relatively the same range of motion as Ford's $600 option in the MKZ. I would definitely check that option box if I were you. Before we hop in the back, let's talk about legroom, especially front legroom. At 44 inches of front legroom, the MKZ has a great deal more legroom than most of the other entries in this segment, including the Lexus ES 300H, which is a fairly long vehicle. That's really noticeable right back here in the passenger seat of this vehicle, which does move a great deal farther back in the vehicle than you'll find most luxury vehicles. Well, that means longer-legged front passengers and longer-legged drivers will find more room in the MKZ than some of those other entries. It also means that if you do push that front seat all the way back in its tracks, you're going to have less room in the back seat. So keep that in mind when I hop in the back. Scooting back to the back seat, I give this 7 out of 10 points overall. This front seat's adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, and as you can see, I have about 5 or 6 inches of legroom left right back there. That's a decent amount more legroom than you'll find in a wide variety of the competition. That's partially because we have a great deal more combined legroom in this vehicle than you will find in some of those shorter competitors, and that would be front legroom and rear legroom put together. But also, we have a relatively thin front seat back. If you take a look at luxury vehicles, the front seat backs tend to be 6 or so inches thick, and these Lincoln MKZ seat backs are a lot thinner than that. They're not less comfortable. Ford has just managed to figure out how to design them in a really thin and space-saving way, and that really gives you a lot more legroom back here than I had expected. Unfortunately, when it comes to rear headroom, this vehicle has more in common with the Mercedes-Benz CLA and the Volvo S60 than the Mercedes-Benz C-Class or the BMW 3 Series. If I sit upright in this seat, my head is distinctly touching the ceiling. I do have to slouch a little bit in order to be comfortable back here. So there's a lot less headroom back here than you'll find in some of those other competitors. Now, even something like a Lexus ES 350 only has an extra inch of rear headroom, so you may have to step up to something even larger than this if you want a really accommodating back seat. Now on the right side, keep in mind, as I said, that this front seat back is all the way back in its tracks, and that's about 3 to 4 inches further from the dashboard than you can move the seat in any of the competition. So that means you can fit a much taller person more comfortably in the front seat of this vehicle and still fit a 6-foot person in the back if you had to. I have about an inch of legroom left right back here thanks to the thin front seat backs and the scallop design of the seat back as well. I don't have a whole lot of foot room, however. I do have to twist my feet to get them in and out of the footwell, but I could do that for about an hour or so without too much of a problem. Scooting on over to the middle seat, this middle seat is surprisingly comfortable, even though it is a little bit above the outboard bucket seats. However, I still have the same head problem right up here. I don't have a whole lot of headroom. I do have to cock my head to kind of a funny angle in order to fit in that middle seat. Let's take a look at this relatively funny looking seatbelt right here. This is an inflatable seatbelt. It costs just under $200 as an option in the MKZ, and this is definitely an option that I would select if I were you. It's also an option that I would select if you were buying any Ford and Lincoln product in which it was available. We have two different ratchets, one that comes up from the bottom and then one that comes up from the seat back, and then we have this exaggerated belt buckle right here. And the reason for that is because in an accident, this seatbelt will actually kind of unzip and it will inflate and it will become about 3 times as wide as a standard seatbelt. And the reason you want that is because it distributes the load across a wider portion of your body. So especially if you're a child or if you're a small adult with very brittle bones, that sort of thing, if you're an elderly person, this will greatly reduce the risk of injury and broken bones, especially broken ribs in the event of an accident. It is designed to work properly with a child safety seat, so you don't need to worry about that, but it is an option worth getting. In the center of the rear bench, we have a fold-down center armrest that is nicely padded, 2 large cup holders, a storage compartment right there, and we also have a ski pass-through. Now that ski pass-through is kind of interesting because a wide variety of hybrid vehicles don't give you a ski pass-through or a folding rear seat back, and we have both in this vehicle. The seat back folds down and we have a very large and very square opening. In fact, versus the standard MKZ, the opening is only reduced by about 2 inches in overall height, so you can still fit very long items from the trunk into the passenger compartment. That's a great deal handier than most hybrids out there. Aside from the trunk release, which I found to be in a slightly awkward position right down here above the license plate, we have a decent amount of cargo capacity in the MKZ. I'll take out this computer bag right there, and then in here you can see we have a 26-inch and a 24-inch roller bag. Now it's important to keep in mind that we are in the hybrid model, and so we have kind of this 2-tiered trunk motif going on. We have this lower cargo well where you can just about fit a 24-inch roller bag and a 26-inch roller bag flat. You can put some additional cargo right on top, and we have the battery pack right back here. And you can actually put luggage right on top of that battery pack right like that. Now, thanks to this 2-tiered arrangement, I was able to easily put 3 of these 24-inch roller bags in here and 1 26-inch roller bag and a wide variety of hand luggage back here. And that's because this is only about 2 cubic feet smaller than something like a Volvo S60 or a Mercedes-Benz CLA 250, even though this is the hybrid. Now, if you do get the regular gasoline model, then we get 15 cubic feet, which is larger than the BMW 3 Series, very large for this category. Thanks to the cavernous cargo capacity, even in this hybrid model, I give this vehicle 10 out of 10 points. We also get the preservation of that trunk pass-through, the folding rear seat backs, and thanks to the battery pack and the battery pack positioning in this vehicle, we get a decent amount of cargo space and cargo practicality in here that you don't find in the competition. We also get an assist handle for the trunk and an available power trunk lid. Let's take a quick look around the interior with height adjustable seatbelts for both the driver and the front passenger. Keep in mind that we are in the model that has the cooled seats as well as the upgraded brown leather. This is very nice soft touch leather, perforated inserts in the center and in the bottom of the seat cushion. As you'd expect from a vehicle in this price category, the door is mainly soft touch plastic. We have soft touch plastics all up here, center section of the door right here, soft touch armrest in this brown that matches the seats, and even soft touch plastics down here lower in the door panel. Now right down here on the inside, we do have hard touch plastics right there on the inside right next to the speaker grille, but none of that is an area where you'll really touch it very often. Up here on the door panel, we also have real wood trim and metallic effect trim with these very attractive lock and unlock buttons integrated right here into the speaker grille. Moving over to the dashboard, we again have real wood trim. We have this metallic effect strip running right across the dashboard below that. And if we zoom out, you'll see that all this trim is designed to be very flush with the dashboard in a very attractive design. It has sort of a branching theme over there by that air vent. I do find this design very attractive. You'll also notice another thing from this angle if we move down just a tiny little bit, and that is the dashboard has sort of a lip here. It sort of overhangs the lower dashboard. You will find soft touch plastics for the majority of the lower dashboard as well. The reason it overhangs is because we do have ambient lighting strip that runs across the cabin, so it runs all the way from here on the dashboard all the way across the door panels all the way back right there, and you can change the color in the MKZ. Opening the glove compartment reveals a moderately sized compartment with a tiered storage compartment right here. We do have a little shelf right up here and then a lower shelf right there. You can squeeze the manual in that upper shelf, and you can almost put a tablet computer right there in that area down below. Moving over to the center of the dashboard, there are a great deal of shapes going on here. You can see that we have this interesting curve right down here and then this sort of lip over right here. This is the center channel speaker in our THX certified sound system model. 2 large air vents right here in the middle. Moving over to the center of the dashboard, you can see we have this very elegant design theme going on here. I might even call this Scandinavian in overall theme. We have this injection molded dashboard that is flush with the metallic effect trim and the rest of the center console. So it all looks like one single plane, and it's accentuated by these touch buttons right down here. Now at the top we have this speaker, and you can see the dashboard actually sort of curves in a little bit and then goes under this portion of the dash and then comes back out and meets the rest of this in a very flush fashion. To the left side of the infotainment touchscreen, we do have our start-stop button, and then we have our push buttons for the drive position in this transmission: park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then low. Now some people have emailed me asking me how reliable this will be, and honestly this is going to be no more or less reliable than the average gear shift in the average vehicle, because most vehicles sold in the US today have drive-by-wire shifters right like this. So whether you're using buttons or a knob or a more traditional shift lever, there's no direct connection between the shift buttons or the lever or that dial and the transmission. So there's really no difference in terms of reliability between these buttons and those other designs. But using buttons right like this, Lincoln was able to free up a little bit of space in the center console versus a traditional shifter, and you don't have a traditional column shifter hanging out right here on the side of the steering column. Over here on the right side, we do have grade assist braking. This is not hill descent control. This just gives you a little bit more engine braking when going downhill. And that's because we're in a hybrid version. Right over here we have our hazard light button, then we have our autonomous parking button right here. So you push the button, it automatically starts looking for a parking spot on the right side. If you want to search on the left, you just turn the left turn signal on and it will start turning over there on the left. If you want to know more about autonomous parking, there is a video on my channel about how these systems work. Ford's is one of the best systems out on the market. Of course, right here we have My Lincoln Touch, the infotainment and navigation system in the MKZ. If you want to know more about My Lincoln Touch, then go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen. You'll be taken on over to a video about that system. In our particular vehicle, we do have the hybrid, so we have a hybrid energy flow screen right here. And if we go over to the climate settings, we do have a few options that you may not find on some other vehicles, such as the air-conditioned seats, and the heated steering wheel right over there. If we did have the multi-contour seats, you'd get yet more buttons in this screen right here to help you adjust the seat and control the massage function. Below that screen, we have a single-slot optical disc player, and then we have touch buttons for the climate control as well as the audio functions in this vehicle. Right now, they're turned off. I will go ahead and start the engine so you can see how they appear. As you can see, the buttons are very attractive when the vehicle is on, and they're very well hidden when the vehicle is off. They're also very easily readable in bright daylight like we're seeing right here. I didn't have any problems with responsiveness and these buttons like I had with certain Cadillac Q buttons. These never got confused. They also have kind of a light up feature, so if I zoom in on this fan strip, you can see that a light inside that strip actually chases your finger to help you know what exactly you're doing with that strip. Now again, these are very easily readable in bright daylight like we're seeing right now. Below the climate controls, we have a very small storage compartment with a 12-volt power outlet and a very small storage cubby right there. Behind that, we have 2 very large cup holders. These were easily able to accommodate large takeout sodas like that. And then in between these 2 large cup holders, we have a small can holder. So if you have a can of Red Bull or something along those lines, you can put it right here in between the 2 large drinks. Moving back, we have a large softly padded center armrest. If we open that up, you will find your auxiliary inputs for the My Lincoln Touch system. 2 USB ports right over here. This was not able to power a high draw power device. I had no problem charging my cell phone. We have a 12-volt power outlet. We also have the SD card slot for the radio maps. And then here we have component video input in this particular system. It is fairly deep. It's also relatively large. I have a little divider right there. This is what the Lincoln Keyless Entry and Keyless Go remote control looks like. It's a very attractive and relatively compact remote control. Unlock, lock, this is remote start, trunk release, and panic alarm. Before we move over to the instrument cluster, let's talk about this little grate right here in the dashboard. That's actually for the pre-collision warning system. Hidden inside there is a row of LEDs, and if we start the car, you'll actually see a little test strip of LEDs right there light up. It reflects off the windscreen right in your field of view. If there was a collision that the system thought was imminent, then it would actually flash those LEDs very brightly, a little bit brighter than you saw there. It would also mute the audio and beep at you very loudly. It's very similar to what Volvo uses in all their various vehicles, and it is very effective. In fact, this is probably one of the best notification systems for early warning and collision detection because it's right there in your field of view, and it's very bright, so you don't get that same kind of reaction even with heads-up displays in competing vehicles. This instrument cluster should be very familiar to you if you've seen any recent Ford or Lincoln products. We have this large central speedometer right here, flanked by these two large color LCDs on either side. This one on the right side right over here is controlled by this button array right over here on the right side of the steering wheel. And as you can see, you get entertainment, you get phone, navigation, climate, as well as your efficiency leaves. The efficiency leaves tell you how efficiently you've been driving. The more efficiently you drive, the more leaves and flowers you get on that little display right over there. You also have a wide variety of commands accessible right here via this display. So you can change your infotainment source. As you can see there, you can actually see quick dials, all calls, incoming calls, outgoing calls. You can recall previous destinations, go home, you can get a compass. You can also alter certain climate control settings, so you can actually change your temperature right there on that display. Now the display on the left is very logically controlled by the button array on the left side of the steering wheel that you can see right there. We get some additional gauges over here, so this shows you how many kilowatts the engine is producing and how many kilowatts the motor is consuming or producing for you. We also have our instant miles per gallon, battery gauge, fuel gauge right over there, average fuel economy right there in the center. If we go back, we also have access to various trip computers, fuel economy screens with braking coaches and acceleration coaches, certain vehicle information. We also have access to vehicle settings like the driver assistance settings. One noticeable thing here is that Lincoln does bury their drive control right in this menu, and that's how you adjust the firmness of the suspension. This does have a dynamic suspension in this vehicle, so we can choose between comfort, normal, and sport right over there. Now, depending on the trim level you get, there's also an available 10.2-inch full LCD instrument cluster where everything that you see right here is replicated in an LCD instrument cluster. It's more of a two-dial design theme by default. I'm going to go ahead and toss some pictures in this video so you can see what that looks like. I was not able to sample that one in person. However, it does look like one of the best LCD instrument clusters available, and it certainly seems to be one of the cheapest ones because the Cadillac ATS, you cannot get the beautiful Cadillac LCD instrument cluster in that model, but you can get it in the Cadillac CTS. Moving on out to the steering wheel, we have this very attractive 4-spoke steering wheel. It's sort of imitating a 3-spoke design. We have this wood inlay portion right down here. This does match the rest of the wood in the car, and it kind of gives it a 3-spoke effect right down there. I'm not sure how I feel about this airbag design, so be sure and let me know what you think about it down there in the comment section down below. The steering wheel integrates sport grips right up here with hand grips on either side of the steering wheel that are very nicely formed. This button module controls that screen on that side of the instrument cluster. This button module controls the ones on the left side. Right down here we have our cruise control buttons. Since we're in the vehicle with the radar cruise control, we do have a distance button right over there. On this side you will find your infotainment buttons, volume up, down, mute, voice command button right there, dedicated hang-up and pickup buttons, and track forward and backward buttons. Those are contextual, so it really depends on what menu you're in the My Lincoln Touch system as to what they do. If we look below the radio and climate controls, you can see we have this two-tiered storage area right here, right between the two front seats. You can see right over there to the driver's seat from the passenger side. We do have little rubber dividers here to help you keep from having your cargo roll around, so you can toss a phone down there like that, for instance. Now, there aren't any USB or power ports on either of these tiers, but they are kind of handy to store knickknacks.